Hey everyone, today we're in for a treat with this episode today with the Parent Problems Today podcast. I'm Mark Adamski, one of the parent trainers here with Parent Trainers, and today we get to interview the founder of Parent Trainers, Robert Trout. Welcome aboard. What's up, man?
Hey, not much. I'm just enjoying life every day.
So everyone wants to know a little bit about you, and so here we are interviewing you so folks can get to know the founder of this amazing organization, who you are, what you're all about, how you started this whole thing. So we're going to dive into it. And for viewers listening, let's just start with who you are, what your role in this company is. Obviously, you're the founder, but tell us more about who you are and how this whole thing emerged.
All right. So, who am I? God, that's such a long story the older you get, right? So, who I am in context for Parent Trainers is I am a therapist that has worked his entire career training to become a therapist and then stepping into the full therapeutic role, only to leave the therapeutic role because of a major problem that I ran into working with families, which was, let's just say, they weren't ready to live with or they weren't prepared to work with their loved ones that were struggling. So often parents would bring me their kids and say, something's wrong here. Right? It's like, take this kid and make it better. And, after working every stage of development through working intervention programs, working in addiction and recovery, working in just behavioral health in all these different capacities over the course of 25 years, we got to that place, or I got to that place where I was really tired of people saying, here, fix this kid. And very often that was metaphoric, but to be honest, sometimes that's exactly what they said, is it's their problem. So who I am a father, I am a therapist, and in the core of my philosophy on living life, I am a trainer that shows up to try to help people develop the skill sets necessary to step into a helping role and to make life easier for everyone around them, as we're all in some capacity struggling. So a little bit of everything is the answer to that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing. I'm excited for folks to get to know you as I've gotten to know you over the years. And yeah, you've been working in this field for quite a while, you could say. And you've worked in so many different capacities, so many different settings. You've seen from the beginning stages of the crisis to the in treatment to the aftercare, the extended care, the whole loop. And I think it'd be cool for folks to know before we get to the next question of like what you teach, because obviously at Parent Trainers, you have a whole curriculum of courses and coaching. And I think it'd be cool for folks to know a little bit how you led into this model and maybe some of the in-home work you started doing as you start to be like, hey, like parents need to be equipped. They need to be taught and trained and getting these skills implemented in their actual lives. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones with their children. It's on them. So why don't you just kind of just take us back into that and how we got to your curriculum and then, maybe what you like to teach the most.
Yep. So when I look back over my career, some of the most impactful educational sections of my life came from being trained not to be a therapist, but to be a paraprofessional who was following a treatment plan, maybe created by a therapist, but my role was different. My role was to be with that kid all the time, or to be in that situation with the kid and a parent or both parents or the whole family. Every job was slightly different, but when I was given opportunities to step in to work with family systems, it wasn't ever, hey, go do something. It was, okay, let's train in this core therapeutic philosophy. And then, oh, by the way, I also need to learn how to do all of this stuff in real life, which was, in my opinion now, is the part that's missing for everybody, is that we can read books, watch webinars, TED Talks, all these things that people kind of step into. And it's like, oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love that. That's going to change my life. And then from my point of view, professionally as a therapist, that it doesn't change their life because we're missing the facilitation part of concept to action, which is where we got to this point, where I got to this point of creating this curriculum and working with families all over the world and just allowing them to step into that space of, okay, how do I do it? Because I understand that the brain's doing this, or I understand what ADHD is. I understand, but now what? The now what is where this came from and evolved to what it is today. But I have to be honest with everybody. That did not necessarily come from training to be a therapist. It came from
No.
therapeutic models. It came from our understanding of neuroscience and of mental health crisis and the brain, and all of those areas. Yes, it birthed itself from that. But this is a standalone process that I believe everybody needs. I think every parent needs to do a training to build fundamental skills and then progressive skills beyond that to be able to specify what's going on per individual. And in reality, I kind of believe everybody should do this just for working with other humans. If you're going to interact with other humans, you're going to run into people who are struggling that most people are just going to say, oh, they're being mean, or God, they're insane, run away, versus oh, I see what's happening. That's what my hope is parents in this scenario, they step in, oh, I see what's happening. And there are things to do for this. Not just one thing, but lots of different options of things to do to help counteract and to help stabilize and to help bring someone through a process that they're in. So that's how it evolves, is from taking concept into action and taking as if I was going to train you to work for me as a staff full time, all the time, 24 hours a day, helping these people struggling. Here is what I need you to know. So just taking that corporate concept and moving that over to, okay, it's time to train to be that person.
Yeah. So I heard a lot of themes there. The two big ones was a lot of like neuroscience, speaking to the brain that you mentioned a lot about in a lot of your curriculum, and then this idea of just like training. You mentioned like the corporate model. So explain more about like why is training so unique and different maybe than therapy? And you mentioned like this corporate model. Like, can you break that down? Why it might be important for parents to understand that difference?
Oh, absolutely. So in corporations, we see them invest in their employees in the form of training them in skill sets that make them competent. Now, if we're going to step into that and realize that we know that works, I mean, that's why, I mean, there's no other reason as a society for companies to train to competencies. So just using that metaphor itself, training is the natural, logical step to say, okay, if there's struggle, if there's a need, right? So companies usually exist because there's a need that needs to be met, and that's in the form of technology, gadgets, service, industry, recreation industry, whatever it is, there's a need. So all I'm saying is let's translate that we have a need, so the answer becomes training and competencies to the need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, obviously in corporate America, right, they want to maximize, the skill set of their employees and scale as a business. They need to make sure that their staff and their employees know what they're selling or whatever the product is or whatever the industry, that they're competent and they're doing a good job. So it's interesting how you make that connection from a therapeutic lens of training, equipping parents to know what they're seeing to be the ones dealing with that stuff. So why don't, that feels like a good segue into like training versus therapy, because
Yep.
I think this is a little bit more unique. It's a little bit out of the box, so to speak, of traditional therapy. I think it's a common point, even like with my friends and family, of like, I don't really like therapy. I do therapy. Some people love therapy. Some people don't. It works for others, doesn't work for others. What's your thoughts on how this is different than therapy?
So therapy is a tool. And if we look at the statistics within therapeutic communities and models, et cetera, there are a few consistencies that aren't always true, but they're consistent across the board. And for example, most people would say that training isn't a therapist's job. A therapist is processing, building rapport and relationship with. Yes,
Um,
they're helping someone uncover things that they maybe have never thought about, including uncovering traumatic events that have kind of shaped how you think, how you react and respond, etc. But it's processing. That's what you're doing. You're going in, and most therapy is in some form talk oriented versus kind of some outliers within that, which are amazing, like equine therapy, sand tray therapy, those type of things. But within therapy, it's usually about uncovering and shifting. I love narrative therapy. It's one of my favorite avenues of therapy where it's all centered to me on the core philosophy of changing the story. I live my life from this story. That story is preventing me from change because I'm locked into the story. I've got to live in a way that justifies the story. So,
yeah.
in that philosophy, the work is to rewrite the story and tell it in a different way, which I love. And it kind of feeds into how I jump to this place where what I'm going to say is therapy is about processing. Therapy is usually long term, meaning that it's a process oriented, relationship oriented practice leading to an outcome. For us, when I think about training, I think about, well, let me take this concept and then give you 5 different ways to handle a situation that you're dealing with every day. And that person takes it that day and goes and practices one of those ideas of implementing a change process, and then it either works or doesn't work. So we get feedback, we get data. But over the course of trying that over sometimes just a couple of days, we can start to see immediate change results, which reduces stress and anxiety, allows people to feel like they're making momentum into the future. And in training, especially as a parent trainer, we're honoring that there's more than one person involved. In therapy, it's usually centered on I'm here with you, right? The therapist is kind of out. They're relational, but it's not about them. In parent training, we're talking about one person with a child, so 2 automatically. And then add in that it's probably maybe 2 parents or 2 parents and grandparents or a blended family with all these different
Yeah.
co-parents and exes and etc. We start to get far more complicated, but the training is to say, okay, as a system, everybody gets to change now. Let's start really making momentum by step processes that can be done in a day, a week, a month, a year. Sometimes change takes a very long time, especially if there's a neurological situation there or trauma history or et cetera, right? Like we know that it can take a long time to shift behaviors. But then in the training model, we have to say, wait, hold on, shift it how? Because for us, we're looking for it's just different, right? Our parents
Mm.
sometimes get trapped by that. It's like, oh, well, perfect looks like they're getting out of bed every day and going to school. That's not what we're shooting for right now. We're training you how to work with this person to get them there. But that whole process of getting them there might take a year or more. But them going to school 2 days out of the week, that could happen in 2 or 3 weeks. So we're looking short term and long term. The difference is we're not saying how do you feel that your kid won't get out of bed. We're saying here's what we're going to try today. Go, do, stand like this, say this, use this word sequence, offer this process to them, etc. So it's very action oriented in a training model versus processing. That's the
Mm.
difference.
Yeah, totally different model. I love it. You mentioned the word momentum, helping parents after you're training them to build that momentum. So with that momentum, with the training, let's dive into like maybe some of the training. I know you don't want to give it all away. I know you teach parents a lot in your courses and all that. Why don't you share a little bit, maybe part of your curriculum or some of the favorite things you like to teach, a little bit more specifics?
Sure. Um, what comes to mind immediately are some of the things around neurological tricks and processes that families can use to help someone snap out of a thought process that they're in. We do a lot of education around those kind of neurological tricks, brain tricks, A lot of our parents call them Jedi mind tricks because they're like, this isn't going to work. And then it works and they're like, oh my God, yes, like what's happening here? So it just completely shifts how they're looking at things. And I love that. That's probably one of my favorite arenas, is looking how to snap the brain out versus working directly with the person. It's like, if I can get the brain to let go, the person becomes more kind of moldable and more open to verbal conversation and things like that. So that's probably one of my favorites. Then we get into concepts around setting the stage of intervention. And just to give a short summary of some of that, it's looking at, okay, today I'm going to say this thing 3 times, because what's happening is I know from my training that if I say it 3 times, I've planted a seed that in a week I'm going to be able to gain resources from what I said today. And 3 is a very normalized number for the brain, that if you do something 3 times, it starts to plant itself, right? So it's that whole metaphor of I plant the seed so I can come back later to take from what it's growing because of the work I'm doing today. So in intervention strategies that we teach, we look at creating that knowledge for parents of, we do this today, not because you're expecting an immediate result, but a timeline result in that. So those are just some of the examples of things I love teaching and kind of stepping in with parents. And it's all part of the video series and things like that we're doing now. So those are some of my favorites.
Yeah. So yeah, the arena of working with the brain seems like one.
Yep.
Also, this idea of like, kind of sounds like front loading, like getting in there, playing the seed, and playing for the long game. That sounds really cool. And so with that idea there, of those things, those are some of your favorite. What about like your actual favorite, maybe client or family to work with? Anything that pops out to you that comes to mind?
Yep. Well, when I stepped out of the actual program world and started my first company, in reiteration of this, as we've evolved that into parent trainers, without trying, 2 categories came in. Like, I have to be honest, like it was not the plan. I just thought I was going to help families and, do some addiction work and training, do some processes around just changing language and helping families figure out how to sync together, right? Like team building, that kind of stuff is how it all started. And then over time, because of the model itself, I think I fell into 2 categories that became just all the time. And that for me is autism and young adults. Those 2 categories surprised me because I always worked with teenagers. It was a major category for me. But as far as like clients that seem to be underserved in the technical arena, because you look on Amazon for books about working with teenagers, you're going to find a lot of resources. You're going to do an Amazon search looking for a book on young adults, you're going to find a couple. Just in the last 10 years, it's been a major shift in the world of like, okay, failure to launch, anxiety disorders and panic attacks and et cetera. COVID. God, just think about everything we've gone through with young adults, college students, et cetera, that went through COVID. We're just seeing so much there. And for those parents, they were a little lost in that arena because it was like, oh, well, they're adults. Good luck. Right. But the parents were still on the outside saying, no, we want to help. How do we help? How do we help without hindering the growth process here, et cetera? So our training just fell right into that niche, and they've been finding us in droves looking at that. Okay, how do I help my young adult and be in their life, but shift my role, shift the way that I work with them so that I'm supporting growth rather than offering, rescuing, or kind of false hope of them taking over their life at some point, things like that. So young adults have been a huge part of my life in the last 10 years, and I love it. It's been a great arena to step into for me that I'm very passionate about. Like I said, for most of my career before that, it was all teenagers. But then just as a category with autism, because it's a spectrum, it offers a lot of maybe this is wrong to say it this way, but a lot of really fun, creative strategies for developing, because every single one of them is so different as an individual, that you can step in and get to know them neurologically and say, okay, for this kid, we need to take this strategy and adapt it. How can we adapt it? And so it's kind of this, here's the idea and or concept, and parents go and try it like this, try it like this, try it like this. Okay, we've received enough data that we're going to adjust the plan. And it's a really, for me as a professional, it's always been a really fascinating thing. And for parent trainers, it's a massive part of what we do, is working with families on that have kids on the autism spectrum, to help them kind of resource and figure out what they're doing. So those two categories, I'm going to say, are kind of favorite clients or scenarios. But that's because both offer so much room professionally for growth and creativity in that.
Yeah.
Still love the teenagers. They're always going to be a strong suit for me, but those two categories are right at the forefront for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how you said, folks on the spectrum, like it invites a lot of ingenuity and creativity, and like a lot of critical thinking. And then also with, how society is now, especially post pandemic with young adults, like neurologically, neurodevelopmentally, they're given all this dopamine to like launch and do these things. But our housing market, all these things, it's like society is saying, no, you got to still be kind of a kid. And so like, there's definitely a lot of friction pieces there. And
Sometimes,
it's really,
yes.
can be, yeah, certainly. That's really cool, really exciting, really interesting. So what are you most excited for, Rob, with this company and parent trainers? Yeah.
I'm going to say a couple of things. The reason we're evolving into this, the reason I'm pushing this towards this direction, is really centered on, first of all, access. Because for so long we've been kind of stuck in kind of a spot where not a lot of parents have access to us, because there's only so many of us and there's so many families. So we can't meet the need anymore of doing it just in the like face-to-face, one-on-one, that kind of thing. So we have to evolve into this online system where it's like, okay, here are the trainings and concepts. And then if we take that and partner it with the skills through the coaching, the supervisory coaching, the parent training coaching arena, that's where we're able to like, okay, we can reach so many more families that are in need of this. So providing access, making it more affordable, and driving that into building hope for families. So that's a huge part. For me personally, oh God, I don't even know how to say this. The reality is that I'm excited about the partnerships that are possible now across the world, of finding professionals and working with neuroscientists and working with paraprofessionals who have started to jump into similar ideas, but they haven't necessarily figured out that it's training that they're really looking at. It's like, well, we need parents to get this. And instead of writing a book, how about we develop a system of like, here's how we translate that into 5, 10, 15 strategies, and just allowing them to partner with us and to join our team and to do all these trainings across the board on subjects specific to families that are within our community, and the feedback we get from our videos and trainings where it's like, hey, let's do this. So I'm really excited for the growth potential where families get to communicate directly with us in larger numbers saying, hold on, y'all, we're missing a piece. And then we as a team, we get to step in and say, oh, you're right. Let's do this. And I love that creativity. I love the like, okay, let's take this concept and translate it into actionable steps. I love that. I come from a background, like I said, in experiential education. So how to take something and turn it into a functional model. I love this development. I really do. It really ignites me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super exciting. There's so many ways and so many places to think about how this can impact so many lives and families. And I love what you said about accessibility, because yeah, there's a lot of folks who just from a monetary financial standpoint don't have access to this. And I think like from all the work you've been doing previously of like getting boots on the ground and flying across the country, like there's such a need and we can't be ever all the time. And I think there was maybe concern about being able to deliver the same outcomes and results with like putting things on these courses, but we're getting great results. And it's really exciting to see that this stuff does work. And the kind of last point of what you said is like inviting and finding folks in the similar spaces who are oriented towards realizing it's training is really the solution to see where that goes, to maybe like host trainings for clinicians or providers to, utilize this curriculum, utilize this work to equip parents because it's on them, at the end of the day. And so excited, Rob. We're so excited for this project. And anything else you want to say? Any last thoughts or anything you want to tell parents?
Oh, I'm going to say that if you're out there right now and listening to this and you are searching for ways to step in, right? That's what this is all about. To step in with your kid rather than losing hope that things are possible. So if you need help creating something for yourself that works, that's what we're here for. That's what I would close out with is you're not alone. There are so many professionals that wish they could step more into this arena, and that's what we're doing. We're creating the arena for you so that you can send in your questions, your scenarios, have help literally taking apart the pieces of what is happening for me. We're here for that. That's what this is all about, is to meet every family where they're at individually without the idea of a cookie cutter model. It's take the training, but then use the coaching to break into here's what's real for you, and then finish that out with, okay, I'm developing for my kid what's needed. So you're not alone. We're here for you, and we're going to keep advancing, keep creating curriculum, keep making more videos and trainings and meeting the needs that we find from you. So reach out to us. Maybe that's really what I'm trying to say is you're not alone. Reach out to us because we're excited to create. We're excited to teach. And we want to know how to do that as good as we can. I want to know how to do that as good as I can. So
yeah,
I'm excited for the future. That's really it. I mean, there's so much potential here. So that's where we're headed.
Well, we're so excited to see this new revolutionary idea of training. And Robert Trout, founder of Parent Trainers, thank you so much for letting us know a little bit more about yourself, what you're all about, what this company and organization is all about. And for folks who want to learn more, they can find us at www.parenttrainers.com. They can find us on this podcast, Parent Problems Today, and reach out to us at info@parenttrainers.com. We're excited to hear from you and help you and serve you. And thank you so much, Robert Trout, founder. And thanks so much.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Bye.